Hello everyone and welcome to AuditNet's Training Without Travel webinars, IDEA software training via practical application, presented jointly by AuditNet and Richard Cascarino and Associates. Today's webinar is using advanced functions in IDEA. My name is Jim Kaplan, founder and owner of AuditNet, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Today's presenter and subject matter expert is Richard Cascarino, principal of Richard Cascarino and Associates. Let me have Richard introduce himself, give you a brief overview of his background, and then I'll cover the housekeeping items, disclaimer, and important information about the AuditNet IDEA partnership. Richard?
Thanks, Jim. Welcome to the new attendees, and for those who are back, welcome back. My name is Richard Cascarino, and I'm the principal of Richard Cascarino and Associates, based in Steamboat Springs in Colorado and in Johannesburg in South Africa. My background, I have some 30 years experience in IT audit, in training and consultancy in both of those fields. I'm a past president of the Institute of Internal Auditors in South Africa and a member of ISACA, the ACFE and the IIA Denver chapter. I'm also the author of the Auditor's Guide to IT Auditing, Corporate Fraud and Internal Control, and I was told yesterday that my book, Internal Auditing and Integrated Approach, the third edition, should be out about the 10th of April. So that's me and that's my background. Let me hand you back to Jim, who will take you through some of the housekeeping.
Thank you, Richard. Let me go ahead and cover the housekeeping items for today's webinar. I did send slides out to everyone. You should have received 2 emails this morning. The first one, the slide deck, was not the one that we're using today. The second one should be the one that we are using. I won't go into detail on these slides, but the webinar is being recorded, and you will be receiving a link to the recording. You will also be receiving CPE under NASBA rules if you answer all of the polling questions during the webinar. If you're joining us from a mobile device, a tablet, you may not be able to answer the polling questions, in which case you should accumulate all of your answers into a single document and just email that to us, and we'll go ahead and we'll record your answers and provide you with the CPE. You will be getting the link to the recording and to the CPE at the email address that you registered with in GoToWebinar. We are able to take your questions today, so submit questions via the chat box on your screen. We'll answer them either during the webinar or at the conclusion. We typically do that when we have a break for a polling question. After the webinar is over, you'll also be able to complete a survey that will provide you with information and feedback on how well we did with the webinar and ways that we can improve it. The next slide provides you some information about the disclaimer. Again, that slide was sent to you this morning. I'm not going to go over that. However, I would like to cover just one important item, and that's the IDEA AuditNet partnership. AuditNet has entered into an agreement to provide access to subscriber content to IDEA Premium supported users. If you're currently a Premium supported IDEA user, you can access the AuditNet content at no cost. For more information, go to the AuditNet site for details on how to log in and access more than 2,300 templates. There is a slide with supplemental information at the end of today's presentation, which provides you with the link to the video that we have on the site that was put together by Don Sparks at Automation, and we look forward to you taking advantage of that relationship. So let me now turn it back to Richard so that he can share with you how to get the most from IDEA software using advanced functions. Richard?
Thanks, Jim. Well, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be taking a look today at the functions within IDEA. One of the big problems that you have whenever you're doing any kind of auditing is that data that they give you guaranteed is not the way you want it. Now, you can go back to IT and say, listen, could you convert this from this kind of date function to that kind of date function, or can you convert that from alphabetic to numeric so I can use it for arithmetic procedures? And that is a hassle in your life, and it also allows the data that you're looking at to have been edited. and that's not ideal. So one of the features that IDEA has for you are what are referred to as @functions. And the @functions allow you to convert data from one format to another, to calculate times between dates, to do a whole variety of things. And we'll take a look at what those are, the standard @functions. We'll take a look at using them within the equation editor, and then we'll look at tailoring your own @functions. And then you'll see it says they're wrapping the series. Now, this is wrapping the first 10 webinars within this series. The last 2 webinars are specific to advanced use of script. Okay, developing your own scripts, developing continuous monitoring scripts, etc. So when we look at wrapping the series, it's not the full series, it's a series up to the advanced script area. Okay, so where do we start? Well, the way that we always do, we start up IDEA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump across into IDEA. And we should now all be looking at a similar screen. Okay. First thing we need to do is get hold of something to do some @functions on. So we'll grab a file. And the one I'm going to grab is a customer database. So we'll pick the file. I'll pick up the customer database. If you've already got the customer database sitting in your desktop project, that's fine. If you haven't, then for those of you who've been with us all the way, you should remember how to do it. For those of you who are new and joining us, from our home screen, we're going to go into our Desktop Plus, and we're going to pick up, in this case, a Microsoft Access file. It could be any kind of file. We'll pick it up from our project, which is our tutorial, and we'll pick up the customer database. You'll see we've only got one database within that, so I'll say OK. And there's my customer database. Now that I've got the data, what can we do with it? Well, we can do all of the analyses that we've used in the past. We can look at doing extracts, we can explore, we can categorize, we can relate, we can sample. In this case, we're going to do a direct extract. Now, the only reason I'm doing a direct extract is to get me into that little button in the middle, the one that looks like a calculator, and that's my equation editor. Okay. And you'll see this is the standard equation editor that we've been using all the way through this. There are all the fields down at the bottom. There's our operating area. These are all the equation actions that we can take. And in the middle column, we've got insert function. Okay. And if we have a look at insert function, you'll see that there's an all, there's character, there's numeric, there's date and time, there's matching functions, there's conditional functions, there's financial functions, and then you can write your own custom functions. Now we're going to be going through every single one of these. Under normal circumstances, if I wanted to manipulate, let's say, my customer number, which I can see is a character field, then I would go over to the character functions. But in this case, I'm going to go to all and I'm going to click on the plus. To the right of the functions are the help screens. And as we go through each one, you'll see there is a help screen on each one, and it shows you what it does, how it does it, and what the syntax of it has to be. So if I look at the first one, ABS. ABS will give me the absolute value of a numeric expression or a numeric field. Okay. Now, why would I want to do that? What is an absolute value? Well, the absolute value is a numerical value ignoring the sign. So plus and minus are treated the same. And you can see on there, there's an example of when you might want to use it. If you want to look at large invoices and large credit notes on an account, then you wouldn't look at the amount, you would look at the absolute amount. If I looked at the credit limit here, and I picked up credit limit, then I could then say, show me whether the credit limit is greater than this or less than that. But if I wanted to see the absolute value, I would double-click on ABS. And in double-clicking on ABS, you can see right away I've got my ABS in green with a double set of brackets. And in the double set of brackets, I can now double-click on my credit limit, and my credit limit comes up in blue. So what that would return for me is the absolute value of the credit limit. Okay. If I check it, validate it, it tells me I have a valid equation. The way I did that was just to go across and click on validate. The second tick in. Okay. So what else can we do? That's going to give us our absolute value. Well, I can check, let me take that out. I can go and check, click on afternoon. Now afternoon will return a number. Okay. A number, a 0 if it's in the morning, and a 1 if it's in the afternoon. Okay. And if the time period exceeds 24 hours, then it will say it's in the afternoon. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, I might be looking to find out who signed in to specific areas in the morning or in the afternoon. I could be looking to see when the network is busiest. Is it in the morning or is it in the afternoon? And then I can go and find out why. It's a lot easier than saying take the time, and if the hour part of the time is greater than 12, then this is an afternoon, etc. A lot easier just to click, and again you double click on afternoon, and in here I would put a time field, and it would then interpret whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon. Okay. What else do we have? Well, we have the age. Very useful one for auditors. Age returns the number of days between two specified dates. So the format, you can see the syntax there is @age date1, date2. If I double click on age, it comes up here. But if you look down at the bottom, or in the middle of the screen, you'll see a question mark, and that shows you @age, open brackets, date1, date2. Okay, so down here it actually gives you the syntax of it. So you don't have to click on it and then go over to the right-hand side and then come back. Now that's going to look at the dates. The dates may be either date fields or date constants. And again, it can look at, for example, if you wanted to look at the current date versus date purchased, then you can do a date analysis of your inventory, how long items have been sitting in stock. Or if you want to find out how long your debt has been outstanding, you can do an analysis of outstanding invoices, unpaid invoices. If you want to find out how long it takes for checks to clear, you could do an analysis of that age based on the date of the check. So there's a variety of functionalities within that that can at some time or another be useful to the auditor. I'm not suggesting that you sit and go through all of these and say, Wonder when I could use that, wonder when I could use that. Just be aware, when you want to know from today's date to a date that you've got, how long was it, then you can use an age type function. As an alternative to age, which is going to give you the duration, number of days between it, we can look at age, date, time. And age, date, time will return the number of seconds between two sets of date and time combinations. So instead of simply looking at the number of days, I can get right down to how long is this, what is this difference. Okay, and as you'll see there, if you have a numeric field, it can be either numeric or a time constant or a time field. If you remember when we looked at the one which had the logins, there was a time logged in. I could take the time logged in, the time logged out, and figure out how long someone has been online. And I might then want to filter for anyone who has been logged into a specific site for more than 15 minutes. Okay. But the value comes back as number of seconds. For example, numeric value of 86400 is read as 86,400 seconds, or put it another way, 24 hours. Okay. While 4832 is 1 hour, 20 minutes and 32 seconds. Okay. Age time is looking at the number of seconds between two specific times. So we've got age, which is days, age, date, time, which gives us between days and time in seconds, and age time, which is purely time-based. Okay. Everyone feeling a bit shell-shocked? Well, that's very good, because that brings us to the first of our polling questions. Polling question number 1. Finding the number of seconds between two events involves at absolute, at age time, at age date and time. The total number of seconds between two events. Once again, remember, you don't have to get this right, but you do have to vote to show that you were listening. We have 100% voted, so I'll close it and share the results. And when you look at it, you'll see when the share the results comes up, which is refusing to do, but never mind. I can see it here and I can tell you what's on it. We had 60% said age time and 40% said age date time. Okay, and the correct answer would be age date time. Remember, the question asked the number of seconds between two events, not between two times. Now, two events could be on two separate days, so they would use the age date time. Okay, let me hide that one. And bring us back into the screen. Okay, now one of the things that can happen when you get given data is that the data that you've been given can have a whole pile of leading spaces. So you've been given the address, and the address is 25 Main Street. But for one reason or another, it's got space, 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 25 Main Street. If you compare that to a known constant like 25 Main Street, it's going to say the two are different. So what I can do is I can trim it. And all trim will remove both the leading and the trailing fields in a character field. Okay. Now I can do it in a variety of reasons. I can use it when I'm adding titles to prepare a circulation letter, so I don't want all the spaces at the tail end. I want the name followed by address 1, address 2, address 3, and I want them nicely lined up. I can also use it if I'm using a match to try and say, is this name, which is on our payroll, which has got Fred space Smith, is this the same name as Fred space Smith on our list of known clients, customers, suppliers, whatever I'm interested in for this particular audit. So you can use these kind of @ functions in combination. I can say let's do an @ match and then do a trim on that one and take off the leading and trailing spaces. The other one that you're often faced with is that you've got two files and you want to compare two data fields. You want to compare the customer number, but in one file it's been declared as numeric and the other file has been declared as string. So I need to be able to convert one to the other. So I can come back with the ASCII value of a character field or a date field containing a single character. Now what would I want to do that one for? This is not the same thing as converting a string of characters to numeric. This is taking one character and returning the ASCII value. Well, if, for example, you were doing an audit, let's say for argument's sake, you were doing an audit of IBM's BIOS operating system, and you look at an indicator which is attached to a program and is called the program status word. You'll find that certain bit characters within that, within one character, there are multiple bits, and the value of those have got different meanings. So one might mean it can bypass passwords. One might mean it has to be APF authorized before it can be run. And I might need to get down to that level. So this can give me the ASCII value of a string character. So ASCII of A would give you the string character of 65. ASCII of a small a would give you a different value. Okay. And you can see there, ASCII of a capital A gives you 65, and ASCII of a small a gives you 97. So if I wish to compare them and they're not the same, I can use ASCII to convert. I can also use between. Between will tell me whether a number, a numeric value, falls in a specific range. Now I could say if the number of days is greater than 7 and the number of days is less than 20. Or I can say if the number of days from 8, 20, and it will tell me 1 if it's true and 0 if it either exceeds those dates, is higher than, or it's lower than. Okay, so it's simply a question of between, and then in between is the number that I want to test based on the cursor location, and then the lower limit, comma, and the upper limit as numbers. Okay, again, it just saves you messing around to try and get there. There are other ways you could do it. Between date tells whether a date falls within a specific range. So I might want to look at anything. I want to look at all invoices for last month. So instead of saying let me take invoices if the invoice date is greater than that and the invoice date is less than that. I can say if the invoice date is between. One of the difficulties always when you're doing this kind of work is if you look up at the equation bar, you'll see and not, and or. If something is greater than A and less than B, or should it be greater than A or less than B? And that always gets people confused. It's a lot easier to say, I want to know if it's between A and B, inclusive. So here's my value, there's the upper limit, there's the lower limit. Show me, and there's an example that you can see there, at, between date, open brackets, a date, comma, another date, comma, another date. So 25/11/12 is between 25/11/01 and 25/11/30. So it would return a 1 to say this is true, it is between it. And it can then filter for any which are true, or any which are not true. Show me anything that's outside of that range. So that was looking at between a date. I can also do it for between time. And if I look between times, it's exactly the same thing, but it's showing me whether something falls between times. So I could say, for argument's sake, our normal online day is from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. Filter for anyone whose login time is not between 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock at night. Or I can say we'll be having trouble. Someone seems to have been trying to hack us at 2 o'clock in the morning. Show anyone who logged in between 1 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning. So I can say show exclusive or show inclusive, simply by saying if it's in the range, it'll be a 1. If it's not in the range, it'll be a 0. Okay. What else do we have in here? Well, we've got bit. Bit will return the value, and remember we're dealing bit, binary digit, okay, of the specified bit within the field or value. I've got a question. Can I use at between when performing a direct extraction, or would do a formula and then extract based on 1 or 0? Well, what I would actually do is, if I was doing that kind of thing, I could say if credit limit is between, okay, and now I need to put number 1, number 2. So number 1 is 1,000, comma, 1,500. Okay. So if I look at that, will that work? Anyone see a problem with that? Invalid parameter. What's wrong? What's wrong is it's the credit limit I want to look at, but the credit limit is not at between. I need to put the credit limit in there. Oops. That wasn't there. I need to put the credit limit within the brackets, comma, 1,000, comma, 1,500. If I validate that, it will tell me it's a valid equation. So if I tick that now, and I could say the file is going to be credit between 1,000 and 1,500. And if I say OK, it's telling me I've got 0. There are no customers with a credit limit in that position. Okay, so let me take it rather between 2,000 and 4,000. So let me go back into my, I'll delete the one that we're not interested in. In fact, I could actually go into it and edit it. But let me just delete that just now. There's my customer, and I'll do my direct extract, and it's going to be credit greater than 2,000 and less than 4,000. And in here I can say I want to go in and pick up my between. My between is going to be my credit limit, comma, 2,000, comma, 4,000. Now, it tells me that one contains invalid characters, okay, and the file name. So I can't put greater than or less than, over, 2,000, and under 4,000. And these are all the ones that fit. 110 records out of my total customer base of 341. Okay, so it's as simple as that to pick it up. Now I didn't need to do that. I could have said within that, let me go back into my direct and go in there, and I could have said if credit limit is greater than, now here's a problem, it's not greater than I'm looking for, I need to take that out, it's greater than or equal to 2,000 and credit limit is less than or equal to 4,000. And I'll call that one CR2 just for the sake of it. And lo and behold, we've got the same 110 records. But instead of going through all that rigmarole of saying if it's greater than this and it's less than that, and hang on, is it and or is it or? It's a lot easier just to go straight in and say show me between. Okay, I hope that answers the question. I was looking at bits, binary digits, and again I could look, for example, if I was doing a technical audit and I need to look at the contents of a character, and let's say bit 15 is telling me something special, then I can go in and say if bit of that value is a 1, it means this. If it's a 2, it means that. So I want to know any programs where bit 15 in the program status word equals 1. Those programs. Because that means something special as far as this audit is concerned. Or it's not equal to 1. What am I looking for? Well, that depends. It depends what you're trying to prove. I can also look at bit and. Now bit and, I've got a sign on my screen and I don't know why it's still there. Bit and is a logical and. So I can turn around and say if the bit is this and something else. Okay. Why? Because I might want to compare two values for numeric expressions and compare the results. Okay. And I can say wipe out certain bits, I don't want to see them. In the same way as I do bit and, I can also do bit or. To do a bit comparison for two binary values for numeric expressions. Okay, so that bit is going to be the bit, the value 0 or 1 of a specified bit within a field. Bit and looks at binary values for numeric expressions. Okay, so there's an example. There's a number 11. There's the bit value, the binary value for that number is 00001011. Okay, and for those of you who are not familiar with I'll try that again, binary arithmetic, that's 1 1 plus 1 2 gives you 3, plus 0 4s plus 1 8, which gives you 11. Okay, so that number in binary is that number in decimal. Now, what else can we use? Well, that's one of the more popular ones, more common ones. It performs the opposite function to an ASCII. Okay. So if I have, for example, a character bracket 65, that will give me an A. Okay. Now remember, I don't need to do this in direct extracts. I'm doing it here simply because it's an easy one to get into. Let me close that down. I could, for example, go into my data and say I want to append a data field. Okay. It's going to be, I don't know what I'm going to call it, append. It's going to be a virtual field, virtual numeric, and the parameter I want to give it is, and again I can say I want the bit or I want the character, and the character value is going to be, if I do character and it's looking for the number, it will be a 065 or 65. Now that's giving me a character field. This is saying virtual numeric. It's not numeric. It's going to be a virtual character. How long do I want it? I want it to be 2 digits long. And there it is there. My A. Okay. So why would I want to do that? I probably wouldn't want to do that. So I'll remove that one. All I want you to realize is that you don't have to go into analysis and direct analysis to get into the equation editor. Wherever you are in the equation editor, you can use these at functions. If you're adding a field, if you want to interpret something and then compare it for 1 or compare it for 0 at a later date, not during this, you don't have to do it with the equation editor. At this stage, you could create the field and then later on use it for a time comparison or whatever. Okay. Compare no case. Very useful one. Compares two fields or strings disregarding the case of the text. Again, that kind of thing that says I want to compare John Smith with John Smith. Now John Smith is capital J, capital S. John Smith is all capitals. And John Smith is all lowercase. I don't have to convert upper to lower. I can simply say compare no case. And it says if that one is the same as that one, it will return a 0. If string 1 is less than string 2, it will return a -1. If string 1 is greater than string 2, it will return a +1. And again, if you look at the example, there's ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can have a look at that. And I want to compare that to ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to tell me they are virtually the same. That one to that one is going to turn around and say the first one is lower, ABC 1000 is lower than ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not really interested in the ABC, it's only interested in the numeric part. Okay, so I'm comparing alphas, ignoring the, or fields with alpha in it, ignoring the case. Comp if. Comp if, again, a popular one with auditors. It will tell you whether a record can meet multiple conditions. So I can say, and it's important because if you, the order that you ask them in, because if you evaluate the first to be true, then everything else is skipped. So if I double click on that one, and you can see here, comp if, there's the number, and then condition 1, any result. Number 2, condition 2, any result. So I can put in all kinds of results. So condition 1 is going to be the first one that's going to be tested against. If it fails that condition, end of story, stop, don't carry on. If it passes it, go on to the second condition. So I can look on all of those. It returns a 1 if it's true, and that must be specified as the final condition only. So if it's that, and that, and that, and that, and that, 1. Okay. For example, if the transaction values are held in foreign currencies, with a field called currency to indicate the currency, then I could compare if the pound value is this. So if currency is UK, compare the amount. If currency is that, compare the amount to that. If currency is UK, compare it to that. So it's either in pounds, or it's in euros, or it's in American dollars with different rates. Okay, so you can work there. You can get down into really heavy duty stuff, getting into multi-state fields and Boolean fields. Personally, I've never used them. I have used compare if. When I'm looking at currency and I don't want to say extracted US dollars and then extract the pounds and then extract this, and I want to get them all converted into dollars and then compare them, I can say compare if. If it's a dollar, it's 1. If it's a pound, it's 1.52, whatever the exchange rate is, and then compare it that way. Change to a date converts a field containing date stored with a character field into a date field, and it does it, it converts it into the year, month, day. Okay, so I have to tell it the field I want to convert. Okay, if I double click on that one, let me take out my compare if. I want to compare two dates. One is in day, month, year, because it's European. The other one is in month, day, year, because it's American. The other one is in Julian date. The next one is in day, year. Right? Whatever it is, I can convert any date into the standard IDEA one simply by saying, here is the date, comma, here is the mask. Okay, so there's my convert to date, 12th May 1999, comma, it is day, month, year, comma, and it will convert it into the standard IDEA date, which is 4 years, 2 months, 2 days. And if I do that to all of my dates, I've got them in a standard format that I can then compare. Okay. Convert to a time does exactly the same thing, converting numbers into times, which I can then use for time calculations. Curform and curval are used to convert numeric fields in a specific format into a different format. So I can convert a numeric value into a structured field. If I take my current form, I can put in my number, and I can say, let me say if I took my credit number, I could then say I want a string separator for thousands, a decimal shown as a comma or a decimal point, and then the maximum width. Okay. Now that's converting a number to a specific form. I can do it the other way around and convert a string with thousands, separators, etc. into numeric. Pure numeric, so I can do numeric, I can do normal arithmetic on it. Date, again a useful one, it simply returns the current date of your computer. Now, that's an important one for the auditor to remember. That's not returning today's date. That's returning what the computer thinks is today's date. So if I want to do an age analysis comparing date of invoice to today's date, I'm going to have to make sure that the date on the computer, the one down at the bottom here, is today's date before I can do that. Day will tell you it's a date to take a date and extract just the day in the numeric format. So if we've got year, month, day, this will simply give you the days. Okay. I only want the day part. So there's 1991, 12/25, Christmas Day, it will just give you the 25. Again, that can be useful if I'm wanting to do an analysis and find out if certain days, let's say public holidays, were being used to process transactions which they shouldn't have been. Okay. Days to D will convert whatever the date is to the number of days since the 1st of January 1900 into date format. Okay, so if you've got a numeric expression, some systems, particularly those that were created around about the time of Y2K, converted dates over to numeric format containing the number of days from the 1st of January 1900, so that instead of having to worry about whether it was two-digit year or a 4-digit year, let's just put the whole lot into days, and then we'll just work arithmetic on the days rather than involving the years. Now, if you want to get them back into the year, month, day format, you can do it by converting at days to D. Okay. Happy so far? Now, we're going through them all, and all is giving them in alphabetic order. So now we're getting into some of the financial ones. DB returns the fixed declining balance depreciation over a specified period. If you're auditing the financial accounts of a company, this can be a useful one for you, because one of the things that will be going into the financial accounts is the depreciation. Now remember, when you're doing depreciation, it depends on the type of depreciation you're doing. Are you doing straight line? Are you doing declining balance? Are you doing double declining balance? Okay, so this is on a straight declining balance. And there you would look at what is the cost, the salvage value, the life of it, the period, the number of months in the first year. It will assume 12 months in every year after that, but you may have bought it halfway through the year, and then it will give you a declining balance. So if you've got a declining balance of 1 million, 100,000 left, the life is over 6 years. The duration of the depreciation period is 1 year, and the number of months in the first year was 7, then it would give you, on a declining balance, that the value is now $186,083.33. Okay, now that's declining balance. There's also double declining balance. Which one should you use? Well, it depends on the organization, it depends on the nature of the industry, but a depreciation method will have been used, and that will be in the notes to the financial accounts, and the auditor would typically simply check to make sure that the value has been calculated using the type of depreciation which has been specified in the accounts. So in other words, you cannot say we depreciate using declining balance and then go and calculate the number using double declining balance. Okay. Delete will delete a specified number of characters from a fixed position in a character string or in a string expression. Okay, why would you want to do that? Well, again, it can be the kind of thing that's set up. We had one example where we had a set of financial accounts that were using one account code. Now, the account code was for creditors, and it was a 10-digit account code. But the deposits to the bank were an 8-digit account code. It only used 8 of the 10 digits. So what this allowed you to do is say, okay, delete the first 2 and then only compare the last 8. Again, it's not the only way you can do it, but it can be quite useful. Okay, and it doesn't have to be the first 2. You're saying from position 5 to position 7, or position 6 alone has got a hyphen in it. In the Social Security number, it's either got a space or a hyphen between the groups of numbers. Now I want to look at them as a solid number, so I can take out whichever one is the extra character. Day of the week returns the week as a number. For example, 1 for a Sunday, 2 for a Monday, etc. So if you ever wanted to know what day of the week you were born on, you can calculate it using this. Okay. If you follow the old nursery rhyme that Monday's child is full of grace, Tuesday's child is fair of face, Wednesday's child is loving and giving, Thursday's child works hard for a living, and you wonder which one you were, you can bang in your date of birth and find out which day you were born. Okay. Again, it can be useful to find out if you're looking at, for example, a warehouse, which day of the week is the warehouse busy on or busiest on, because that might affect the costing structures and it might affect the number of people you have to have on duty during that particular day, etc. D to Z converts a date field stored in date format into a character field, and you can specify how you want it. Very useful if you want to take records which are held in the American date structure, and this is a report going to Europe and you want to convert it to the other one, then you can do that to a different. D to days returns the number of days from the 1st of January to the current date. Okay, that's how Excel stores dates. It stores them as the number of days from the 1st of January. It shows them as whatever you want, but that's how it's stored. So that when you do comparisons in date, it's actually pure arithmetic. Okay. D to J will convert a date in IDEA date format to a Julian date. Okay. For those of you who are not familiar with the Julian date, what it's going to give you is day, 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 year, year. Okay. So it gives you the number of days. So if you look at the paid date being 1999-12-25, that would give you 730,114 days, virtual numeric. Okay. EXP, exponentials. Again, it can be a useful one if you're getting into things like stat sampling, where you're wanting to do valuation based on exponentials. And it will give you an exponential to the base, whatever it happens to be. So if you're looking for the square or the cube or whatever. Field statistics returns numeric value of the specified field statistic, and exactly the same way as when you're in IDEA itself. And you want to go over and get field statistics. So you don't have to go across to field statistics to do it. You can, if you wish, go in and pick it up from field statistics. Find one of. Okay? Find one of is a nice way to look inside a field where you want to look for specified character values. So you might want to look at, for example, I don't know, addresses, and pick up anything which is avenue or anything which is street. It could be anywhere inside that string. So just look inside the address and tell me if this is an avenue or if this is a street. Or if the state contains Texas. Whether it's Texas, North Texas, South Texas, East Texas, West Texas. If the word Texas is in there, give me it. So I can find one of that string inside another string. Fin year returns the financial year that specific date falls in. So again, you've got to tell it what the year end. So if you're looking at trying to consolidate financial figures from multiple companies where they've got different year ends, you can pick them up and convert them and find out which financial year that particular transaction fell in. What else do we have? Well, we've got the formal 12-hour clock. We'll tell you the format in terms of a 12-hour clock, because again it works as number of seconds in the numeric side. It can tell you from the clock side which one it is. Future values, again back to a financial side. If you're doing financial auditing, returns the future value of an investment where IDEA assumes that the payments are due at the period end. So here is my payment, there's the rate, that's the number of payments, and that will give me my future value. Okay. Get at returns a character at a specific position, so I can look for a specific character in a string from a specific position. Remember, find one of said if it's anywhere in the string. But if I want to find if the person has a doctor, DOC, I could say find any DOC. Now that would pick up Dr. Smith, it would pick up Dr. Doherty, but Mr. Doherty would also pick up with a DOC. So I could say I want to see if the first 3 digits contain DOC. Okay. Or I could check that the 9th character of the national insurance number is not a number. One of the ways you can use this one is if you are picking up, for example, credit card numbers, and you want to check the check digits on the credit card numbers. Then you can take the first so many characters, run it through the algorithm, and then compare it to the final digit, or digits I should say. Get next value returns the next value in the specific field starting at the first value. So if you've got a virtual field, the first value will be the second value from the specified field, etc. Again, you'll notice one of the conventions when you're dealing with this. As soon as you start looking at alphas, they've got to be within quotation marks. And if you don't, it will tell you there's an error. So I can get the next value, I can get the previous value. When would you want to do it? Well, there's an example. Lowercase characters are accepted. If I want to look at a valid field name parameter, it can be entered as amount, amount, or amount, depending on how it's been typed in. Additional spaces are accepted as idea, and we can remove them before processing the equation. So we could say amount and amount are accepted. So amount without the space and amount with the space. So I can move through the database looking at the next or looking at the previous. Okay, hours. Hours, straightforward enough, returns the hours portion of the specific time as a number between 0 and 23. Works in 24-hour clock. If allows me to test a specified condition, and if the result is true, then it returns the true result, otherwise it returns false result. Okay, so I can, within this, I can put an if condition. Now, why would I want to put an if condition into something which says do this if that, if that? Well, remember, I don't have to do this in an extract. I could be doing this, creating a virtual field if something is true. So I can specify my if within this. Am I confusing the hell out of everyone? I hope not. Remember, if you're stuck, you can always go and look at the help. Insert. Insert allows you to insert a substring or character string before a specified position. Okay? So that, for example, the example that's given here is if I want to insert a server name into a log address. So there's my user, and I want to put not Galileo Hughes V, I want to put Galileo Server 1 Hughes V. Then I can say insert, open brackets, user, comma, at position 9, server 1. Okay. So if this is going to be used for future sorting or comparisons later on, a year from now, I can put where this came from. I can insert that into a string. Int. Int will give you the integer value for a parameter, so you can hide the decimal places. If you're only interested in the whole numbers, you can say compare the integer value of this to whatever. Okay. Interest payment. Again, interest payment allows you to calculate the interest payment for a given period. One of the financial ones that you might want to look at. If you're looking at, for example, calculating a mortgage bond, you can put in the interest payment would be the rate, the interest rate, the total number of periods, the total number of loan payments, present value, future value, and the type. Okay. 1 at the beginning or 0 at the end. Okay, there's an example. You've taken out a $10,000 loan, which is an annual interest rate of 10%. You've got to pay it off in 36 months. You want to know the amount of interest for your 13th payment, which is due at the end of the month. Then you can run your calculation and it will tell you how much the interest payment is. Okay. When would you do it? Well, I picked up a situation in a bank where if a person had taken on a mortgage bond, then it was calculated over 30 years. Fine. If they took on, let's say 10 years in, they wanted to add something to the bond. They wanted to take out an extra bond for more money to do home improvements. But they wanted it to be finished at the same time. Then you would calculate that repayment on a 20-year bond. What the programmer had done was he'd added it to the full amount that was still outstanding and recalculated the whole thing on a 20-year bond. And that gave a totally different interest calculation and a totally different payment. What was actually happening was all of the interest that had been paid on the first 10 years of the mortgage bond had effectively been thrown away, and the client was starting from square one again. So that kind of thing can be useful if you need to find out exactly how much of this is interest. That shouldn't be that, that should be something else. Internal rate of return, straightforward enough. Calculates the internal rate of return for a series of cash flows occurring at regular intervals. Again, it's going to be equally spaced intervals. At least one each of income and payment values has to be included. And again, there's the syntax, internal rate of return, there's the estimate, value 1, value 2, value 3, equal to, and there's the number. Okay. Is blank tests a character field or a date field to find out if there's nothing in it. Okay. And you can see that when we've done some of the exercises that we've done over the past few weeks, where we found when we linked files, we found that we had customers with no transactions, but we also had transactions with no customers. So you could pick it up and say, show me if customer number is blank, and just pick it up from there. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's have you thinking. Let's have another question. Next polling question is saying to determine if a record satisfies multiple criteria, the auditor would use what? @compif, @curform, @bitand, @bitor. We have 80% voted. And we have 100%. Let me close that and share it. And as you can see, the majority of people went for comp if. Okay. What is comp if? There it is there. Evaluates a record for multiple conditions and returns the specified value corresponding to the first condition that's met. Comp if. Okay. Let's push on and see what else we've got in here. We looked at is blank. Let's have a look at is field data value. Okay. Occasionally you get something that comes up and says error in the database. So if you import a date field and you give it the mask, and instead of being month, day, I'll try that again, year, month, day, someone has entered a date as year, day, month, one. All you'll get on the screen is error instead of the date. So you can have a look and say, show me all of the records without bad data in a field. Or for that matter, show me all of the ones with bad data in a field. Is in. Useful one again, used to search for specific text within a character field, date field, or string expression. Okay. So it would be is in, string 1, string 2, etc. And you can use it in a calculation for a virtual field, or using a calculation that returns a character position in string 2 where string 1 commences. As in Smith, Mr. J. Smith, would return the value of 8, indicating it starts on the 8th character within the string. So where is it in the string? J to D converts from Julian date into idea date. Just letters gives you a string with all of the numeric values removed. So if you're looking at an address and you want to remove all of the numbers, you just want the streets, or some of the streets might have 2-digit numbers, some might have 4-digit numbers. It can be a bit messy to try and get them out. You can say, just give me just the letters. If you have a field which has got a value in it and all you want is the number, then you can say, just give me the numbers. You can say, just give me the leading numbers and exclude. Or you can say, just give me the trailing numbers and exclude the leading numbers. So if we looked at those two, just numbers leading, just numbers trailing, we had 25 Bank Street and 33 Bay Street, Suite 3. Just leading would give me 25 and 33. Just trailing on those same fields would give me 0 and 3. 0 because there's nothing there, 3 because there's a 3 there. And again, that can be a useful one if you've got code numbers or identity numbers with a mixed alpha and numeric. Last day of the month, we'll give the last day of a given month and year. And again, you could use that for comparison purposes to see any transactions which are coming in after the last day of the month or on the last day of the month, etc. Left will return the specified number of leftmost characters from a field. And again, you could use that with left trim to take out leading spaces. Length will tell you the length of the string. Okay, so the kind of thing you could pick up there is if an account number does not conform with a given length, or if a date, they've only put in the month and the year, they haven't put in the days. It will tell you the length of this string is not 8 or 10 or whatever you want it to be. List, quick means of extracting all records where a specified field satisfies a list of values. So you don't have to say if it's equal to that or that and that or that. Okay. So instead of saying if account number equals that, or account number equals that, or account number equals that, or account number equals that, then you can say list account number that, or that, and out they'll come. Log. I don't know how many people still use logs. The log of a number calculates the natural log of a specified numeric field or constant. Why you would want to use it in these days, I'm not sure. The most common reason for using logs, that I used to use them for way back in the early days, before we had sophisticated spreadsheets and such wonderful inventions as calculators, is I would, if I wanted the square root of a number, I would take the number, look up the log, divide it by 2, and look up the anti-log, and that gave me the square root. If I wanted the cube root, I would take the number, look at the log in the log table, divide it by 3, look up the anti-log, and that gave you the cube root. Log to the base 10 calculates it to the base 10. So you can have logs based on different bases. Rather than base 10, you can have it log to the base 5 or whatever. Lower converts a character field to lowercase. If you want to search for a string, you can remember say ignore case, but if you want lowercase, you can convert something that's uppercase or that's uppercase mixed. You can convert that to lowercase. You can left trim to remove any preceding blanks from a character field, usually when you're trying to line things up nicely on your prints. Match. You can match records with a specific field matching a list of values in the same way as when we looked up here and we could say that we wanted to list, and that was giving us a list of values. So we can say match, and I can extract all records where a specific field satisfies a list of value. Same function as list. Okay. Max returns a maximum of 2 values. Typically when you're looking in a formula and you're trying to figure out which one came out higher. If your order amount is greater than the quantity on hand, then you can simply say extract anything where the max. Okay. Mid requests a substring from a character field. Now, when would you want to use this? This one is quite a common one in IT, where you have a long field. Let's say it's the name, address, and postcode, and state. And I want to extract the state. Now I know that the state is in that field and it starts in position 25 and it runs for 10 characters. Then I can say mid string address 25, or position 10 for 25 characters. And then that will suck that out for me. Min returns a minimum. Same as max gave you the maximum, min gives you the minimum. Not to be confused with minutes. Minutes will return the portion of the specified time as a number between 0 and 59 minutes. Now if this is getting you all confused why we've got minutes mixed in with this, remember we're going through all. Okay. Normally if I was doing things like date and time, I'm going to date and time, and there's my minutes, there's my last day of the month, there's my financial year. Okay. There's my age, there's my afternoon. These are all to do with dates. If I wanted to convert numeric into something else, I can get the absolute value, I can get the ASCII value, etc. So I don't have to go through everything looking for the one I'm wanting. If I want to matching, I can match between dates, match on bits and, match on bits or, show me where there's a match, show me where there's no match. Okay. I'm going through them alphabetically simply to make sure we're covering them all. Okay. So we were looking at maximum, mid, minimum, minutes. Modified internal rate of return. Again, in the same way as we can calculate the internal rate of return, we can calculate the modified internal rate for a series of periodic cash flows, where we use parameters such as the reinvestment rate, the finance rate, and again, you can put it all into one big statement. Now, you'll see there the maximum equation length is 3,000 characters long. If you end up with a modified internal rate of return with a formula that's more than 3,000 characters long, good luck. Okay, because nobody's going to understand it. Month gives you the month from the numeric format, in the same way as we had day, in the same way as we had year. No match will perform the same function as saying, remember we said at list these numbers? I can say not at list those numbers. Or put it another way, no match to these numbers. So if I know who our big customers are, I could put their numbers in and say, give me a file containing only the ones who don't match this, and bring those out. Net present value speaks for itself. Net present value of an investment. N to D converts a numeric field into a date field, again using that IDEA format. N tot will give you a numeric field containing time stored as seconds to a numeric field, the time format. Remember when I started this webinar, I said, guaranteed, the way you want the data to look is not the way you got it. Okay? And this is how you convert into what you want. If they gave you the time as a straight numeric field with seconds, because that's how it came out of the computer, not a problem. We can convert it. Payment calculates loan payment amounts for each period, including the principal and the interest amounts. Again, it assumes that the payment is due at the period end. P-payment will give you the investment payment amount due per period. So it's a per period payment. PRECNO will return the physical record number in the file. Okay, so if the file is indexed alphabetically high to low or indexed alphabetically low to high, the record still remains in the same place in the file. The fact that the index has got it alphabetically ascending or alphabetically descending is irrelevant. It's still record number 582. So, again, you may find that you've got a large file if you're dealing with big data and you brought it down, or even if you're not dealing with big data, if you're dealing with, let's say, an Excel spreadsheet from an earlier version of Excel where they could only have 64,000 transactions, 64,000 rows, then I might end up with 2 or 3 that I need to stitch together. And there may not be a common field for joining the two files. Then I can take the first one and calculate the PRECNO, take the second one, calculate the PRECNO, and then put them together. Proper. Proper capitalizes the first letter of each word in exactly the same way as you would do it in Windows or in Word. PV will give you the total value of an investment, the principal value, assuming payments are due at everything in IDEA assumes that any payments happen at period end. Okay. So PV will give you the, if you give it the payment, the rate, the number of payments, then it will give you the total value, the principal value of an investment. I'm going faster through these ones because these ones are ones that either you will use as a financial auditor and therefore you know how they work, or you will not use as a financial auditor, and typically the day that you need to use them, you go and look them up. Quarter returns a number between 1 and 4, telling you which quarter the day falls in, but you've got to tell it where the year end is because obviously that affects which quarter. Random can give you a random number the same way as using that random number generator would. Rate returns the interest rate per annuity period, giving present and future values. It assumes that it can't be 0. Rec number will tell you which the logical record number is. Okay, remember we said we looked at the physical record number. This looks at the logical record number. Now if you re-index the file, That's going to leave the physical number the same. It's still record number 482, but it might now come to the top of the list. It will now be logical record number 1. Regular expressions allow you to enable pattern matching of data, string 1 to string 2. Remove removes all occurrences of a specified character from a string. Okay, so if you've got a bank sorting code with a hyphen in it, something hyphen, something hyphen, you want to remove all the hyphens, you can do it using remove. You simply say remove, here is a string, remove hyphens, here's the hyphen. Repeat. You can repeat a particular character string a specified number of times. Okay. So if a character account sometimes includes leading zeros and sometimes doesn't, you can make sure that it always includes leading zeros so that you always end up with something comparable to compare. Okay. Replace. Replace allows us to replace occurrences of one text with an alternative text. Okay. So instead of using ST, we might want to put street. Or instead of using street, we might want to put ST. Reverse can reverse a string of characters, and it includes all trailing spaces. So if you're going to use it, you might want to either trim to get rid of the trailing spaces or left trim as appropriate. Write specifies the specified number of rightmost characters, including trailing spaces. So again, I can use trim to get rid of those if I choose. And that brings us to our next polling question. To remove spaces from the start of a string, the auditor would use lower, ltrim, precno, or remove. You're trying to get rid of spaces from the start of a string. What would you use? Remember, you don't have to get it right, but if you want the CPE, you do have to vote. We've almost got everyone voted. And I'll close the poll now and share the results. And the majority of people have gone for ltrim. Remember, remove removes a specific string, whether it's at the start or the end or in the middle. If you want to remove it only from the left-hand side, you use ltrim. Okay. We were looking at write. Let's take a look at round. Round, fairly straightforward, used for precision rounding. Rounds a number to the nearest whole number, or to the nearest tenth, or to the nearest hundredth, or by fives, or whatever you tell it to. Seconds returns the seconds portion of the date, of the time. Seed can select a random number seed if you're using it for random selection. Simple split will take a chunk out of a character string residing between the 10th occurrence or whatever, the specialized try that again, specified start character. So I can do a simple split of the string with the start separator, occurrence, end separator. When would you want to do it? Well, there's an example. Simple split 01, 02, 03 slash 1 slash. So that's going to return 02. Slash 3 slash will return 04. So splitting it and give me the one immediately after. Sin gives a straight line depreciation of an asset over a period. Now come the fun ones. These are the ones that we use for fraud. SoundX and sounds like. SoundX determines whether text is similar in sound that you can then use for a comparison. So there's read. Could be recorded as R-E-I-D, R-E-E-D, R-E-A-D. If you apply SoundX, it will tell you that it's the same thing. So if I've got Reed and Company and Mr. Reed spelt differently, this could tell me that particular portion of the name sounds exactly the same. Okay. That calculates a number, a SoundX. I can use it for comparisons. If I simply want to compare two names, I can say sounds like. Tells me whether two character values are similar in sound. And it calculates the SoundX and compares them, and it gives you a 1 if it's true and a 0 if they're different. Okay. I used that. Police gave us a whole pile of names in an anti-money laundering investigation. And we used that to compare to all of the bank's account numbers or account names in one large bank. And it picked up about 150 names which could be the money launderers. It sounds enough like it to warrant further investigation. It doesn't say they are, it says follow up. Spaces to 1, I can remove all extra spaces from the cell in the spreadsheet, leaving only a single space between words. So if I've got lots of them, for example, if you have imported a file which is a print file, and the print file, one of the fields has been centralized, then you end up with a whole pile of extra spaces. And if I now want to do things with that, I can't do it with all of those extra spaces in. So I can say, take the spaces down to 1, and let me work with it now. Span excluding will return the characters in string 1 from the first character up to but not including the character specified in string 2. Okay, so I could look at the first word on a name or address simply by reading it up to the first space, or look just at the number. I can do it by looking at the numerics, but I can also do it by looking at span excluding space. Span including gives you the ones which match. Okay. Split breaks a character string into segments by specifying a character name or commas. So I can split it up if I know what would be a splitting character within it. Okay. Square root, fairly straightforward, gives you the square root of a number. String will convert a number into an alpha. Okay. Val converts a string into number. String converts a number into alpha. So I can use it in conjunction with other things that require a character parameter. So if I want to get a middle part of a set of digits, and it's in a numeric field, first thing I'm going to have to do is convert it to a string field and then do a mid. Okay. Stratum will show you if you were doing, for example, sampling, stratified random sampling, you can determine the stratum that each record would fall into for a specified numeric value. Strip takes everything out except the bits that you want. So I can say remove all spaces, all punctuation, all control characters, and just leave me the string of characters and digits. Okay. Strip accent. Again, if I have Quebec with the appropriate acute above the E, I can have that removed for comparison purposes. SID returns the sum of the year's digit. Useful one for depreciation. A lot of companies work on sum of the year's digits. Time will return the current system time. And again, you can use that with editable time and virtual time fields, etc. Trim takes the trailing spaces of a character field. So we did a left trim. We can also use a normal trim, a right trim. Okay, or we can do an alt trim. T to C will convert time into string, time to character, or it can convert T to N, time to numeric. Upper will give us an uppercase, where something is case sensitive. Val, as I said, string will convert numeric into a string character. Val converts a number stored with a character type data. Remember, what they gave you is what you got, not what you wanted. They gave you an account number as alpha. You want it as numeric. Val will give you the numeric value. Workday will tell you whether it's falling into the working week or whether it's falling at the weekend. And year returns the year in the numeric format from the date. As I say, these are all split up so that you've got the character functions, you've got numeric functions, you've got matching functions, etc. Okay, and that brings us rather handily to our next polling question. Next polling question says to break a character string into segments and return a specified segment, you would use strip, span excluding, span including, or split. And everyone's voted, so I'll close it and share. We have 90% people going for split, okay, which would be correct. Okay. Happy. Okay, let's take a look at defining your own. Okay. Now if I close down that all, you'll see down below we've got custom functions. Custom functions, instead of using an at, what we do is we get a hash, the pound sign. Okay, and you'll see at the moment there are no custom functions in there. So within here, I need to look at the pound sign. And if I put in a hash, having lost the thing on my keyboard, where has it gone? We're sitting with all of these. Oh, it's up there, sorry. I'm looking at it. It's not there. It's up here. Custom functions. Okay. As soon as you click on that, it takes you into the custom function equation editor. Okay. So if I tell it I want a new custom function, whatever I want it to be, I'm going to create the name of it. Function name will be test1. Now, that's my function name. Output type, what I want it to be. Is it going to be character? Is it going to be numeric? Is it going to be a date? Okay. I can either say I want to change the number of parameters. At the moment we're sitting with 0. Or I can accept not used, character, numeric, date, whatever. And I can name it with a unique name for this particular one. I can also test the equation to see if it works. Okay. And here, so you can set up anything you want in there to be your own unique at function. So if you want to have something that will do something in a weird and wonderful way which combines multiple types, you're not even seeing this. I will hide that. Thank you. I just realized that everyone put their hand up because I hadn't switched off that. So let me close that down and close that down and go back to where I was. Okay. I said that a custom function, you see at the moment in the help, there are no custom functions. Now all of the ones that we've done so far are at functions. A custom function begins with a hash or a pound, which is up here on the button bar, custom functions. If I click in there, it takes me into the custom function editor. Okay. Now, from the custom function editor, I can then say I want a new function. I can tell it whatever I want it to be, test1. Output type I want to be character. Help test. This is a test of custom functions. Whatever I want to put in there. I can change the number of parameters. Use a drop-down list for unwanted parameters. Use not used. Well, I'm going to say this is a character one. It's going to be called P1, and I can give it whatever I want to use. Okay. There's my function test P1 as string, etc. And I can edit anything I want. There's a test equation that will come up. I can put my help test, I can make that a narrative description, I can enter the code for the function in the function area at the bottom. So down here I can go in and say test1 is going to be a string and it's going to be this plus that minus this, whatever I want in there. I can validate it to make sure that this thing will work. It's not going to work because I haven't given it anything yet. When I'm happy I can save it. When I've saved it, I'm not going to create any at the moment, but when I've saved it, that would then come out. Under custom functions with my help text in there, whatever I put in, so that another auditor coming later on would be able to pick that up and make sense of it. Okay, so you are totally at your will able to go and create whatever functions you want. If you are a financial auditor, an engineering auditor, an electrical engineer, a chemical engineer, you can put in whatever functionality that is unique to you. If you are a bank auditor, you can put in bank equations and say, instead of saying future value, you can turn around and say whatever the category is, following a formula, and save that as a custom function for future use. And that brings us to our next polling question. And our next polling question is a really tricky one. It says, functions may be tailored using hash, at, exclamation mark, or all of the above. Remember, we're talking tailoring functions. Okay, I will close the poll and share the results. And the answer is A. Remember, the @ sign is your normal one. When you're tailoring it, is the hash. Okay. Let me hide that and wrap up this session. This session is the concluding session of the first 10 that we've carried out. Okay, so what have we carried out? In IDEA 1, Webinar 1, we looked at what is IDEA, starting a project, importing the data, and planning the audit. We went on in IDEA 2 to look at importing a number of different data types and looking at how to access the import assistant, select the file to import, specify record lengths, specify field delimiters, entering field details, creating them, and appending a virtual field. In IDEA 3, we looked at doing some analysis. We've now got a file, what can we do with this thing? So we looked at summarizing the data, stratifying, viewing the results graph, building pivot tables within it, joining databases, reviewing it, using display all to pick up records containing specific areas, performing a record extraction, looking for duplicates, looking for gaps, looking at extractions, doing key value, and we did our initial look at functions. On the fourth webinar, we looked at designing a report, using the report assistance, setting up your headings, defining breaks, report breaks, grand totals, previewing a report, and printing the report. When it came to IDEA version 5, we looked at examining the data and its layout and bringing in from PDFs or report text files. So we looked at how to examine the data and its layout, select a sample line and an anchor line, defining a trap, saving a layer, scanning for errors, creating append layers, rearranging the fields, saving the template and converting the file. We picked that up with IDEA 6 and carried on using value from the previous record, looking at headers, footers and page breaks within print files, multi-line entries, multi-line options, pre-append layers and post-append layers, using floating traps and creating floating traps, and the difference between a floating trap and an actual trap, vertical and horizontal, or to be accurate, horizontal and vertical. Exclude lines and using exclude filters. In our webinar number 7, we looked at statistical sampling versus non-stat sampling, attribute versus variable, use of monetary unit sampling, and the basics of field statistics within IDEA. We also looked at how to pick up random records for selection. The 7th webinar carried on into the 8th webinar, where we looked at using IDEA for systematic selection, random sampling, stratified random sampling, monetary unit sampling, classical, correlation, trend, time series analysis, and continuous monitoring. In IDEA 9, we looked at the basics of IDEA scripts and why it's a good idea to automate data work when you can. Recording, creating and editing macros using IDEA script, and looking at the difference between IDEA script and Visual script. And we looked at some of the best practices for script development. Then we looked at today. And that brings us to our final question. And our final polling question of the session says auditing sample was covered in Module 3, 5, 7, 7 and 8. Okay, got 100% voted. I will close and share the results. I've got a mixture between 70% have said 7 and 8, which is correct. We did do it in 7, we didn't do it in 5. 5 was looking at reports and producing reports. So the question now is, where do we go from here? Well, in IDEA 11, the next one, we're going to look at creating your first IDEA script and then using the script editor, variables and constants, conditional statements and loops, working with databases and working on maths in IDEA script. And the final one looks at creating interactive dialogues, finding data, importing and exporting, data analysis, reporting, charting and graphing, and finally fixing errors. And that brings us to the end of this webinar. Any questions? Let me hand you over to Jim.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thanks for a great session today on using advanced functions, everything you wanted to know but were afraid to ask. We have 2 more sessions left, as Richard just mentioned, one on, both of them on scripting, advanced scripting, and if you attended the previous session on basic scripting, this is an opportunity to hone your skills and to practice what you've learned and then to build on that. So we look forward to you joining us next Tuesday. Tuesday and Thursday will be the final 2 sessions of this series. We will be sending out the CPE certificates. Probably you should receive them by Monday, and you'll also receive a link to the recording. The recording link will probably go out in a follow-up email tomorrow. So again, thank you for joining us. If you have any additional questions, now would be the time to ask them. If not, then I want to wish everybody a great day and a great weekend. And Richard, get out and enjoy the snow. Maybe you can get out on the slopes a bit.
Not today. I think I'm too shell-shocked today.
Okay, still jet lagged. All right. Well, the training schedule is up there. There is a slide that was included in the handouts today for the information on how to contact us. So, again, we look forward to you. We look forward to you joining us, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.